and welcome back to Phil's Drone Zone, and welcome to part 7 of Learning Piece by Piece, the complete beginner's guide to working in Motion 5, where we make life simpler. If you are a first-time visitor here, I do suggest, if you are very inexperienced at Motion, that you go back to either tutorials 1, 2 or 3 so that you can catch up. And don't forget, hit that subscribe button and click the bell so that you can stay updated when we upload future videos. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at animating out. We've done a lot of looking at animating in with keyframes, but let's see how we animate out. Okay, let's get straight into it, and you can see that I've set up a very simple color solid background, so we're not going to go too much there, and I've added an extra group. Now into that group, I'm just going to pull out a square. Remember to hit the shift key if you want it square and not a rectangle. Reset the parameters and then to center it, and then give it a color. I like that blue, so we'll give it a blue. Any color will do. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a very simple animation, and we're going to animate it on scale, which is the theme of what we're doing here today. So we'll just animate from 0 to 100 over 40 frames. And there we are, we got a job done, and we're just animating it now, and we got a nice little animation coming in there. If we now go to our keyframe inspector and we highlight both, then as we did before, what we normally do most of the time is just ease both. And I will do this 95% of the time, just ease both. Okay, to animate out, we can simply keyframe it now. And I will go forward 20 frames so that it remains in shot for 20 frames, move forward another 40, and then go back to 0. And there you can see, but oops, I've got that's a linear, and I want it to be the same as the others. So let's highlight the 2 new keyframes and ease out. And now we've got a perfect little animation out, and both in and out are exactly the same. So when you have a simple little animation to do, it's very simple to just keyframe the animation out in exactly the same way as you did keyframing it in. Okay, but let's have a look where things might get a little bit more complicated. Again, we've still got a very simple animation here where we're going to have a square scaling in. And so I've set that up so that it's exactly the same as we did with the last square, and it just scales in from 0 to 100. Go to the keyframe editor and now highlight the keyframes, and this time I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go to Bezier, and then I'm going to break the handle. So we'll right click, break tangent, make sure I got all parameters highlighted. Now I'm just going to pull that out so that it comes in fast and slows down a lot at the end. Hopefully that's going to work really nicely. And there we go, that's quite nice, I quite like that. Comes in fast and then slows down at the end, and that's kind of what I was looking for. Okay, let's close that up, and now let's keyframe it out. So we'll do the same as before, go forward 20 frames, and then we'll keyframe in position, and then we'll go forward 40 frames, and then we'll reduce the opacity to 0. So now when we go to our keyframe inspector, now you can see again that we have this linear path curve. Now the problem is that I manually adjusted the curve. So to actually manually now adjust an identical curve will be very, very difficult. So I'm going to do my best to actually try and match up. I'm going to break the handle, so break tangent, and very gently highlight all the parameters, and very gently I'm going to pull it out to try and match as close as I can the curve that I created on the other side. Now this is not easy, and you have to be very patient, and it does take time, and it's also a little bit fiddly and a bit panicky because all sorts of things can go wrong here. And we'll do the same at the bottom. On the bottom we'll break the tangent, and you can see things are starting to get a bit strange. Be very patient. And keep going, keep going. We're not far off, not far off. So let's see what we've got. And it's not a bad effort. It does go out slowly and then speed up at the end. It's not a bad effort, but it's not actually 100% symmetrical. There's an easier way. Delete those keyframes I added, and we will just highlight the existing keyframes and then Control-C to copy. Move forward 20 frames. Let's move forward 40 frames to double the size, and then Control-V to paste. And you get this odd series of curves there. So now all we got to do is highlight the last two keyframes that we just pasted, right click, and then click on reverse keyframes. And there you have it. We've got this really lovely symmetrical curve that took us a fraction of the time, and there was a lot of less frustration involved. So where you have complicated it when you're manipulating keyframes, you can just copy and paste and reverse the keyframes. And that's the simplest way to do that. However, I do remember that we only let it stay in place for 60 seconds, for 60 frames. Am I screwed? No. Just simply highlight the keyframes, and then you can just drag, click on any one of them and just drag slowly over until you got it in the position that you want it to be. And then hopefully now we've got exactly the same thing, and that's working really nicely. So that's how you would do that, where you've had a little play with some of the keyframes and you're not using a very straightforward curve for your keyframing. And finally, when things get really complicated and there's a lot of keyframes in a group, what can you do and how can you animate that out? I really don't know what to do with it apart from put it on top of a Christmas tree. Now, it's not my intention to walk you through how to create this animation. It's a very simple animation, just done on the scale parameter. But it's really the intention of this tutorial to show you how to animate out a group which contains multiple keyframes and how to do that very effectively and simply. I will, however, stop the video at some point and upload the keyframe positions and values for each of the 6 stars. But for now, you can see I've got a group of 1 solid star, and I've duplicated it 5 times and given them a different color. The blue solid star is the first one that I've animated in, and you can see that I've animated it from 0 at frame 1 to frame 11, just 10 frames. And if we go to the inspector for that star, you'll see that I've scaled it to 86%. All the other outline stars then begin at frame 11. I've set their in point to frame 11, so that's where they will appear. And there's a reason for doing that. Okay, and they've all got different amounts of keyframes, and they're in different positions, which creates the illusion of the flickering. So let's just have a look at the orange star and how we, as an example, and how we put that together. Well, you can see it doesn't begin until frame 31, where we've scaled it at 176, and then 5 frames later at 36, we've scaled it down to 0, and then at frame 51, we've scaled it up to 200. And they all tend to do similar things like that. The 3 keyframe ones tend to do similar things to that. Okay, now might be a good time to show you the keyframe positions and scale parameters for each of the 6 stars that I used, so that you can, should you wish to recreate it and improve on it, I'm sure, because as I said, it's not brilliant. I gave up working on it after half an hour. But as I said, the idea of this video is not to create animations, but to animate them out. So we're just creating a group that has multiple keyframes in there. I'm looking at a way which will make it easy, very easy, for you to animate such groups out. So how are we going to achieve this? Well, it's really straightforward. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the group. Not the objects inside the group, but we're going to go and click on the group. And we'll close the group just so that we don't make a mistake. And then we'll right click and we'll go to make clone layer. Now we don't need to understand what a clone layer is at this point, but we will go into that later. But one of the great things about this is that it will allow you to reverse whole groups of keyframes at a single time. And we'll rename that to clone 1 because we're going to do that twice. And so basically then we will find where we want our clone group to begin, and let's just take it to the end. Instead of messing about here, we'll just take it to the end, and then we will move our clone group to the frame that we've set it at. Okay, so we'll now click on the clone itself, and then we'll go to timing and then click the reverse box. Now what that does is it reverses all the keyframes inside that group, and now it will animate out in exactly the same way as it animated in. And we're just going to repeat that process. I'm going to go back to my original group and I'm going to duplicate the original group of stars, animating in, find the place at the end of the first clone layer where I want them to come in. Yeah, so I don't know, somewhere around 120, I think it is. Yeah, that will do. And then we'll move our group up to that point where it comes in. And then what we're going to do again is we're going to make a duplicate of the clone layer. So we'll close the clone group and then we'll duplicate the group. And then find the place where we want the animation to begin at the end of our duplicate main group. And then simply move the second clone layer over to that point. Now we don't need to click reverse on this one because we've duplicated a clone copy that already had reverse clicked. So it's now you've got it animating in and out twice, and it kind of looks really cool, I think, even though it's naff. Just make sure you know where to find it. It's in timing at the bottom of the inspector, and you can see click the reverse box in that panel there. So it really is very simple. There are 3 ways that you can animate out. You can do direct keyframing if you have a very simple animation. If you've messed around with the keyframes a little bit, then you might want to try reversing the keyframes within the keyframe inspector, and then you can use a clone for groups where you have multiple keyframes within that one group. That's about wraps it up for this video. I'm sorry it's been a rather long one, but I think it's an important one. And don't forget, if you are new here, hit that subscribe button and click the bell so that you can stay updated when we upload future videos. And all that remains for now is to say, see you in the next tutorial.